And already, just from a simple jumping mechanic, you can see the difference that it's making to the game.
I'm Xanderwood. I make indie games and tutorials on game development. I also play your indie games every week on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so you never miss a video.
As always, a massive shout out to my wonderful supportive Patreon family: James Welch, Clone13, Foozle CC, Basic Terror, Cole, Ragnar Bro, and Tamara Electric. Thanks guys for supporting my game dev journey, and if you would like to be part of my Patreon family, there is a link in the description and you can get all kinds of benefits, including free art and game and music assets for you to use in any way that you like. Welcome back to another easy game mechanics tutorial. Today we're going to add some polish. So there's a few little things, there's three little things that I like to do to all my games, game jam games or whatever, just to make them kind of pop a little bit more. Firstly, we're going to add in some animations. I'm going to show you how to do that even with just a simple cube. Even if you don't have the drawing skills, it doesn't matter. You can still add some polish to the movement of the cube when it's moving. I'm going to show you how to do that. And we're going to add in screen shake, and I'm going to show you how and when to put that in to create the most dramatic effects, and also some dust particles. There's a couple of things we want to do with the animation. So you've got the basic, just a basic square cube. I've just put a top highlight line and a shadow line at the bottom of mine. You can do whatever you want. The animation, I've just called it idle. It's just got one frame. We're going to right click on the animation. I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to call this jumping. Now, if you look at the principles of animation, there's one principle in particular called squash and stretch, which you can do using the event sheets, but you can just as easily do it using the animations here. And when you squash and stretch something, when it's stretching it gets thinner and longer, and when it's squashing it gets shorter and fatter. So with that in mind, with the jumping frame, I'm going to want to extend the size of my canvas. So because I'm going to be jumping up and I'm going to be landing, I'm going to do landing in a separate animation. So this one's, because it's the jumping, I'm going to reduce, well, we don't need to reduce the width, but we do need to increase the height, and I'm going to increase that by 50%. So I'm going to go up to 24 pixels here, and then all I'm going to do with my selection tool is I'm going to drag in a section. I'm going to move it in 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to move it in 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're doing squash and stretch, it's important to take account of the object's mass. So if we're reducing by 3 on each side, that's 6 pixels. That means we need to go up by 3, and we need to go down by 3 in order to give the object the same mass it had in a square. Otherwise it's not going to look right. There, so that's my jumping frame. So when he jumps, he's going to stretch. So let's go back to the idle animation, and we're going to right click and we're going to duplicate it, and this one we're going to call land. So when he's jumping and when he's landing. So when I land, we're going to want to increase the width, and again I'm going to do it by 50%. And we're just going to take it out by 1, 2, 3 to the left, and on the right, 1, 2, 3. And again, just draw it in. And like we did with the stretch, we're going to want to drop it down now, because we can't take it away from the bottom. We can't come up. We're going to have to take all 6 now from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Jump, land, and back to idle. Now we need to make sure the image point's in the right place. Right in the middle, right at the bottom. So you can see on here it's not quite where it needs to be. So I'm going to put it down, and then on land it's in exactly the same place. That's going to keep the That's going to keep the sprite in the exact right place every time. Now on the square, back on the main page, we can set initial animation to idle. Perfect. Now if we look at the event sheet, I've just got some basic AD and W controls set up. Let's right click and just create a group, and I'm going to call this animation states. And what I want to do is when we're jumping, we want to take him through the animation state. So we're going to click on add an event and we're going to say player. And now we're going to compare and we're going to say if under the platform behavior he is jumping, then we're going to say player and we're going to set the animation to jumping. Then we're going to add another event and we're going to say player. I'm going to come down here and we're going to say on landed here under the animation triggers on landed. So the moment he lands, we want to say set animation to land, and we're going to want to add a couple more actions under this, because when we land we're going to set that land frame, but I only want it to set for a split second. So we're going to add in a wait, so a system wait. It's going to be a very small wait of 0.2 seconds, and then we're going to set the animation back to idle. There we go. And now he looks kind of squishy, which looks better than just the original jump. And again, you can add the same thing when you're moving left and right. You can add like a kind of shuffle, like a kind of squishy up and down movement when he moves left and right. But you get the idea. It makes it a little bit more interesting to look at than just the regular square moving up and down. And it doesn't really take a lot of effort to do. But we're not finished there. We need to go back to the layout. We need to click on the player object. We need to add another behavior. And we're going to add in the camera, the scroll to. Not because we want them to scroll around, because our event sheet is our viewport is the size of our layout. So it's not really going to follow him around, but I do want it to be on there so we can add screen shake. So let's go back on the event sheet and we're going to say again, in this on landed action, we're going to add an action and we're going to say player, and we're going to click on shake. And the magnitude, we don't need a massive 20 magnitude. We can take the magnitude down to 4 and leave everything else default. We want that before the 0.2 seconds wait. Now, when I jump now, nothing's going to really happen. And the reason we're not seeing that happen, and this is quite common, is because the viewport is the same size as the layout. It has nowhere to shake. You can see here the dotted line, you can see that it's very tight to the edges of the actual layout size. And there's a few ways you can fix this. You could increase the size of your layout to give it a bit of a bleed around the outside, or you could click on the player and you could check you could just check the unbounded scrolling box, but if I do that, then you're going to see something that we might not want to happen. It depends on the game that you're designing, but when we do that, it puts the player right in the center. It'll add the screen shake in, but you can see it's given us all this blank space around the layout, which we don't want. So there's another way we can fix this, and all we need to do is click on the player, go to behaviors and delete scroll to. Don't worry about the error, it's just telling you you've got it used in the event sheet somewhere. Now we're going to add in a separate camera. So we're going to go sprite, click on anywhere you like, color it whatever color you want. Doesn't matter how big it is. And we're going to put it right bang in the middle of the screen. And now we can check unbounded scrolling. I'm going to stretch it out so it's the exact same width as the viewport here. And I'm going to make it initially not visible. We're going to give it a name. We're going to just call it camera. Go to the event sheet, and now on landed, we're going to ask the camera to do the shake. And the camera's not going to move anywhere, so it's not going to show us the outside. Did we add? We didn't add the behavior. We need to add the scroll to, and now we're going to ask the camera to do the shake. Shake 4 magnitude over a 0.4 duration, so that's how long it's going to last. Reducing in magnitude, done. Pop that up there, and now we need to make sure we check unbounded scrolling, and now we get a little bit of screen shake and the camera's not moving all over the place. So you can see that that looks a lot nicer. And you can see I've got this tiny white bleed on the outside, but you could easily get rid of that just by extending your level out slightly like that. So it's not a massive issue. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that camera on the layer above, and I'm going to call it camera. I'm going to click on it, I'm going to change the layer, and then I'm going to make it invisible so we don't have to look at it. Perfect. Now we've got the camera shake, we've got the squash and stretch, and the last thing we need to do is add some little dust particles. So we're going to double click, we're going to go to particles, we're going to click anywhere you like on the screen, and we don't need these to be massive, so I'm going to bring them down to 2 by 2. And these, I'm going to give them a slightly kind of greeny grey because my player's green and dust is typically kind of grey. I'm going to go slightly darker, and I'm going to put one of those in each corner, so it's a bit like a kind of like a checkered board. Where did I put them? Oh, I put them on the camera layer. Make sure they're on the right layer, layer 0, and here are my dust particles. So if I zoom in now, we can preview these. So over in the properties, we can see the preview button here, you can check that, and at the moment it looks like this, which is no good because for one, it's going to the right, which we don't want. We want them to kind of go up and then fall, and secondly, it's too big, there's too many, and it's too fast. So the rate, we're going to drop that down to 10. It's going to be a one shot rather than a continuous spray. The spray cone could be 60, maybe 90, so it goes a little wider. That's better. Now, to fix the angle, we could simply just rotate this around. And as you can see now, they're going up into the air. The speed is 200, I'm going to drop that to 100. The size, we need to put it back to 2, because that was the original size. Okay, there we go. Now we see it's not quite what we're looking for. Opacity, dust is not 100%. X randomizer, we're going to say 10. Y randomizer 10. Grow rate, we're going to say -5, but we want a size randomizer, which is going to be 10. So therefore, they can spawn in when they when they get spawned in at any size between 2 and 10. There we go. That's a little bit better. And I want them to shrink down as well. The acceleration is at -150, which is what I don't want. So I'm going to drop that down to 0. Gravity, I'm going to put it at 100 because I want them to kind of go up and then gently fall back down. Try to 250. That's better. That's much nicer. Grow rate randomizer. Yeah, let's put it at 10. Yeah, that's quite nice. I think the speed is probably still a little bit too fast because they're going too high, so let's drop that down to 50. That's quite nice. The angle randomizer I don't want. Speed randomizer is fine. Destroy mode, I want them to fade to invisible a lot faster, so I'm going to go 0.5 seconds. That's better. A nice little kind of... yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's rename this up into the top left. In fact, particles is fine. Drop it down so we can't see it because we're going to spawn it in. Back in the event sheet, on landed on this action, we're going to add an action and we're going to say player, and the player is going to do the spawning. It's going to spawn another object, and that object is going to be particles. It's going to be on layer 0 at image point 0, and that image point is the player's image point, which is right down there in the middle bottom. So now every time we land, we're going to spawn... every time we land, we're going to spawn that in. And again, we'll tuck it in there before the 0.2 second wait. There we go. And there you go, we can add a nice little bit of polish in there, some dust. I mean, you could add in a dust trail the same way. So let's add that in now. So let's double click. We're going to add particle effect again. We're going to drop it down to 2 by 2. And I'm going to color it in the exact same color. And again, I've put it on the camera layer. Layer 0, please. And this particle, I'm going to call this one trail. Now with the trail, you want the speed to be 0. And I'll tell you why, because we only want it to be active when the player is moving. And if we put it at 0, if I put it up here, when I hit preview, it's moving a little bit because you can see we've got the randomizers in there, but let's put the rate down to 5. Spray cone 0. getting a little bit better. Size 2. Yeah, that's better. Opacity 80. Grow rate minus 10. In fact, let's put the size to 8, and then it's going to shrink quite dramatically. In fact, the rate's going to need to be a lot higher, I think, for this trail to work. So let's go 2000. Yeah, that's a bit better. Maybe slightly too much. Yeah, good. The reason it's moving is because we've got speed randomizer. We need that to be 0. And we've got minus acceleration. Fade to invisible after 1 second. Grow rate minus, let's go minus 20. And now you can see that nothing is happening until we move it around. So now I'm moving it around and it's acting very much like a trail, which looks really nice. I quite like that. However, I think the trail should be the same color as the player here. So let's grab that green. Let's go back into the particles and let's color it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to spawn that trail in on our player every tick. So we're going to add an event. We're going to say system. We're going to say every tick. And every tick we're going to set the position of trail. So we're going to say trail. Set position, and we're going to set the position to the player dot x, and the y is going to be player dot y. So now it's going to spawn it in exactly on that image point in the center bottom. So you can see there, but it's in front of the player. So when we move, it's going to be right in front of us, kind of impeding the view. So we need to tuck it in a way behind, and I need it to be in the middle of the cube. So let's change that now. So we've got this every tick. We can put this up at the top in part of our setup. Let's add in another event now that says trail on created, trail set Z elevation to -1, and now you can see that it's tucked in behind the player. I mean, you might want it there, like right at the bottom. I kind of want it in the middle. So what I'm going to do is, on the every tick, I'm just going to change the Y position to say, I know the height of the sprite is 16, so if I say -8, it puts it 8 pixels higher. Maybe just a tad lower. Maybe not quite 8, maybe -4. Yeah, that could be better. I mean, if we start it slightly bigger, in fact, let's play around with the size a minute. If we start the trail slightly bigger, so instead of 8, if I say 16, then yeah, I don't know if I like it as long, but you can see it's already looking a lot more polished. Let's play around. 16, grow rate -50. Fade to invisible after 0.5 seconds. There we go. That's a lot smoother. I also think I want the opacity to be lighter. Let's bring the opacity down to 5. There you go. That's better. And that's how we do it. That's how we create some polish. We add some squash and stretch. We add some screen shake, some particle effects, and already, just from a simple jumping mechanic, you can see the difference that it's making to the game. So even if you're doing game jams and you're making just simple little platformers, just by adding a few little tweaks, which doesn't take a long time at all, you can really make your player and your kind of gameplay and the feel of the game a lot nicer and smoother. So if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.